Everything in episode 3 happens fast, loud, and deadly, but if you look closely, the real story is hiding in the small moments. There are clues in the way characters stand, in the choices they make, and in the lines that sound simple but carry a double meaning. Episode 3 isn't just another chapter, it's the turning point that quietly tells us who's about to rise and who's about to fall. Episode 3 starts with a sudden change of energy, and you can feel it from the very first shot. The world around Tommy is getting smaller, tighter, and far more dangerous. Even though the scene looks simple on the surface, there's tension hidden in every beat. Tommy walks in like a man who's ready for war but still holding back just enough to watch what everyone else is doing. That tells us one thing: he doesn't trust anybody, and he's right not to dot in the opening moments. Every character is carrying pressure from the last episode. Nothing has settled. Every deal is fragile. Every alliance is shaky. The air feels heavy, like everyone knows something big is coming, but nobody wants to be the one to mention it. That's the quiet brilliance of this episode. The danger doesn't come from loud threats. It comes from the silence between the lines. Tommy's body language in the opening scene is sharp. He's alert, but there's a layer of calculation in his eyes. He's thinking 3 steps ahead, something we've seen him do before, but this time it feels different. He's not just reacting anymore, he's building something. And the people around him can sense it, even if they don't fully understand what he's planning. This is where the episode starts planting its first clue. Tommy's rise is no longer just about revenge or power. It's about control. And control is something no one else in Chicago truly has right now. The atmosphere in the room tells a story of its own. You can feel the distrust between characters who were supposed to be on the same team. You can feel the weight of secrets no one wants to bring up. Even the way the conversations flow short, tense, and sharp shows that episode 3 is tightening the rope around everyone's neck. This is not the kind of opening that warms you up. It's the kind that warns you. The tension doesn't come from big explosions or loud confrontations. It comes from the looks exchanged, the hesitation before someone speaks, and the small details placed in the background. A phone left on the table. A passing mention of a name. A deal that sounds good but feels wrong. These details are easy to miss, but they matter. They're hints of the chaos that will hit harder later in the episode. Another strong clue in this opening is how the city itself feels like a character. Chicago is loud, fast, and unpredictable, but in episode 3, it feels almost too quiet. That silence makes the danger stand out even more. When a city that normally never sleeps suddenly slows down, it means something big is brewing underneath, and Tommy can sense it. His instincts are sharp, and this opening shows us that he's preparing for a storm no one else sees coming. What makes this opening so important is not what is said, but what is held back. Episode 3 wants you to pay attention. It wants you to notice the tiny shifts, the suspicious glances, the unfinished sentences. Everything feels like a warning, one that the characters ignore. But the audience shouldn't. This is the writers telling us that every small detail matters. And every choice in this first scene is setting up a major turning point for the rest of the season. Tommy's presence in episode 3 is sharper than ever. And what makes it stand out is the way he moves with a mix of confidence and caution. He's not the wild, explosive Tommy we saw in the early Power days. This version of Tommy is smarter, colder, and more aware of how every wrong step can turn into a bullet coming back at him. In this episode, his mindset becomes clearer. He doesn't just want a piece of Chicago, he wants to own the whole board. And the way he studies everyone around him shows that he's already planning which players need to be removed first. One thing that makes episode 3 special is how Tommy observes before he acts. Throughout the episode, he listens more than he talks, which is rare for him. He watches the way people react, who hesitates, who over-explains, and who avoids eye contact. These small details tell him everything he needs to know about who's lying and who's hiding fear. Tommy has always had strong instincts, but in this episode, it's like those instincts have gone into overdrive. Every moment he stays silent is actually a moment he's collecting information. There's a key shift in Tommy's character here. He's no longer just reacting to danger, he's shaping it. He knows Chicago is full of traps, and instead of waiting for someone else to spring them, he's ready to set the traps himself. Episode 3 shows him analyzing every alliance and treating every person like a possible threat. Even when he appears calm, his mind is working like a machine. He's planning how to break down enemies, how to force allies to stay loyal, and how to turn every problem into an opportunity. This strategic thinking is one of the biggest clues about where the rest of the season is heading. Another interesting part of Tommy's mindset in this episode is the way he handles loyalty. Tommy has always cared deeply about loyalty, but episode 3 shows that he's reaching a point where he can't afford to trust anyone fully. You can see it in the way he speaks short, controlled sentences that reveal just enough, but never everything. He's learning to protect himself with silence. And the people around him can feel that shift. They sense that Tommy is becoming harder to read, harder to predict, and much harder to control. That fear in others gives him more power, and Tommy knows how to use it. Episode 3 also highlights Tommy's long memory. He doesn't forget who betrayed him, who doubted him, and who stood beside him when things were rough. There's a moment where he pauses before responding to someone, and you can almost see the internal checklist running through his mind. He's comparing past actions with present motives, and that's what makes him so dangerous right now. Tommy is acting like a man who knows the city is watching him, and he's preparing to strike before the city even realizes what he's aiming for. Another major part of Tommy's mindset in episode 3 is his growing understanding of power. He's not chasing chaos anymore. He's chasing structure. He's trying to build something real, something stable, even if it's dangerous. And that's the biggest change so far. Tommy finally sees Chicago as more than a battleground, it's a system. A system he believes he can control if he plays the game right. Episode 3 shows him carefully building that system, piece by piece, like someone laying down the foundation of an empire, but beneath all the control. Episode 3 hints at something deeper, a pressure Tommy's not speaking about. You can see it in the rare moments when he slows down. There's a weight in his eyes that wasn't there before, a tiredness that comes from carrying too many responsibilities and too many secrets. It doesn't make him weaker. It makes him more unpredictable. Tommy is at his most dangerous when he feels cornered. And episode 3 quietly shows that he's getting closer to that state, even if he hides it well. By the end of section 2, one thing becomes clear. Tommy is preparing for a war that hasn't started yet. He's watching, studying, and storing every detail like ammunition. Episode 3 lets us see the version of Tommy who doesn't speak unless it matters, who doesn't attack unless he knows he can win, and who doesn't trust unless he has no choice. This is Tommy at his most calculated, and it's exactly why the rest of the season is about to explode. Episode 3 takes the pressure that has been building since the start of the season and pushes it to the edge. Every character is fighting for something: power, respect, survival, and the way these fights overlap makes the entire episode feel like it could explode at any moment. What makes this section so intense is that the battles aren't loud yet. They're quiet, hidden, and dangerous. Everybody's smiling on the surface, but underneath, they're sharpening knives. The power struggle between Diamond and Jenard is one of the strongest storylines in this episode. Even when they don't say much to each other, their history is written in the way they look at one another. Diamond tries to lead with logic and patience, but Jenard's anger keeps pulling him into darker choices. Episode 3 shows that their relationship isn't just strained, it's broken in a way that can't be fixed. Every scene with them has a quiet tension, like one wrong move could lead to a betrayal that changes everything. The writers don't need them to scream or threaten. The distance between them says enough. Jenard's storyline in this episode is especially interesting because of how unstable he is becoming. He's trying to gain control, but he keeps letting emotion guide him instead of strategy. You can see him making choices that don't help him in the long run, but he's too focused on pride to notice. The episode gives us small clues, tiny reactions, quick cuts, background details that show he's losing control of his crew. Some are doubting him, some are scared of him, and some are simply waiting for someone stronger to follow. This is another clue for the rest of the season. Jenard might become his own worst enemy. On the other side of Chicago, the Flynn family's collapse continues to unfold. Claudia is desperate to prove she's the smartest person in the room, and she plays every scene like a chess match. She speaks carefully, moves carefully, and never lets you see what she's really thinking. Episode 3 shows her slipping deeper into manipulation and twisting every situation to fit her plans. But what makes this interesting is that she doesn't realize she's repeating the same patterns that destroyed her family. She wants power, but she doesn't see how much danger she's creating for herself. The episode quietly hints that her obsession with control might lead to a major downfall. Vic's role in episode 3 is small but important. His silence isn't just silence, it's fear mixed with regret. You can tell he's slowly realizing the cost of the choices he made in earlier episodes. There's a heaviness in his scenes, like a man who knows the walls are closing in but doesn't know how to stop it. His storyline might not be loud, but it's powerful. The writers are clearly building him toward a breaking point. And episode 3 gives us a few hints that he might snap sooner than anyone expects. What ties all these power struggles together is the way each storyline creates pressure that eventually lands back on Tommy. Even when he isn't in the room, people are reacting to him. They're planning around him. They're afraid of what he might do next. That fear becomes its own kind of power. Episode 3 does an excellent job showing how Tommy's presence is influencing every group in Chicago. The Sampsons feel it. The Flynns feel it. Even the crews trying to stay out of the spotlight feel it. Tommy has become the center of the storm without even raising his voice. And that scares everyone. One of the strongest clues in this section is the way certain alliances shift in subtle ways. A character pauses before agreeing to a deal. Another one gives a quick glance that shows doubt. A simple handshake feels tense. These small choices matter because they hint at future betrayals that are coming fast. Episode 3 wants you to see that not everyone who smiles is a friend, and not everyone who stays quiet is loyal. The real game is happening in the shadows, and only a few characters understand it. Episode 3 also uses the environment to show how deep the power struggles go. Meetings happen in empty warehouses, quiet rooms, or dark corners, which makes everything feel secretive. The lighting, the background noises, even the way people stand, everything is designed to show that Chicago's underworld is shifting. Nothing is stable. Nothing is safe. Every location feels like a place where deals can be made or lives can be ended. And that tone builds throughout the entire episode, making every conversation feel like a warning. By the end of this section, the big picture becomes clearer. Chicago is split into pieces, and each piece is being pulled in a different direction. Diamond is trying to keep things from falling apart. Jenard is losing control of himself and his crew. Claudia is building a silent empire of her own. Vic is drowning in the weight of his choices. And behind all of this, Tommy is slowly taking advantage of every crack and every conflict. Episode 3 shows that the real war hasn't started yet, but every character is already choosing a side. Whether they realize it or not, Episode 3 may look straightforward on the surface. But this is the episode where the writers load the story with quiet warnings and hidden clues. These clues don't jump out immediately, they sit in the background, in the way characters react, in the silence between scenes, and in the details the camera lingers on for just a second longer than usual. This episode is preparing the audience for the chaos that's coming, and if someone watches quickly, they will miss the signs. But once you start paying attention, you realize episode 3 is packed with signals about who's about to make a dangerous move, who's quietly shifting alliances, and who might not survive the next few episodes. One of the biggest hidden clues centers around trust. Episode 3 constantly shows characters hesitating before answering questions, avoiding eye contact, or giving half-truths wrapped in excuses. These moments aren't random, they are showing us how loyalty is slowly dying in Chicago. A small lie here, a forced smile there, a quick change of subject. All of these moments are hints that certain relationships are minutes away from breaking. The writers want the audience to feel that everyone is reaching a breaking point, and episode 3 is where those cracks finally begin to show. Another major clue is the way the crews are moving across the city. The places characters choose to meet say more than their words. Some meetings take place in abandoned spots, which suggests fear. Others happen in more open locations, which suggests someone is trying to show strength. The shifts in locations are not random. They represent how control in Chicago is slipping from certain hands and moving toward others. Every time someone picks a new meeting spot, it's a sign of who feels safe, who feels watched, and who is trying to hide something. This subtle detail paints a picture of a city that is becoming unstable, one block at a time. Episode 3 also uses silence as a foreshadowing tool. When a scene ends with a character staring off, or when a conversation cuts off before someone finishes their sentence, those moments are intentionally uncomfortable. They hint that something is unresolved, unfinished, or about to explode. Silence in power is never empty, it's always a warning. In episode 3, silence becomes one of the strongest clues that the next few episodes will shift the balance of power in ways nobody expects. One of the most important bits of foreshadowing is Tommy's final moments in the episode. He doesn't have to speak much for the message to be clear. He's planning something that the others won't see coming. His expression, his pacing, his short answers, everything suggests he has finally mapped out his next big move. And the writers make sure the audience understands that this move isn't just about business. It's personal. The final scenes show Tommy standing at the edge of something big, and the atmosphere around him feels like the calm before a storm. It's a quiet but powerful setup for the conflict that's coming soon. Claudia's scenes also contain hidden warnings. She shows a cold confidence that feels almost rehearsed, like she's trying to hide the fear underneath. Episode 3 hints that she's getting involved in something deeper than she realizes. When she takes control or gives orders, there's a shaky edge to her movements, a sign she's pushing herself into a territory that could destroy her if she makes the wrong move. The writers use her confidence as a mask, and anyone watching closely can see the danger building behind her eyes. Diamond's scenes offer another layer of foreshadowing. His calmness is different in this episode, not peaceful, but forced. It's the calmness of a man who knows something is coming but isn't saying it yet. The way he handles conversations, the way he pauses before responding, the way he scans a room, these details show he's preparing for a threat he hasn't fully revealed. Episode 3 gives small hints that Diamond might have to make a painful decision soon. Something that could push him into conflict with someone he once trusted. Jenard's scenes carry the most obvious warning signs. His frustration is growing fast, and the episode shows him losing control over small things, tone, body language, reactions. These small losses hint at a much bigger collapse coming. Episode 3 sets him up like a fuse, short, burning fast, and destined to blow. The writers want the audience to see that Jenard is becoming a danger not just to his enemies, but to himself. By the time the episode reaches its final moments, the clues all connect into one message. Chicago is about to break open. The characters don't realize how close they are to disaster, but the audience does. Episode 3 quietly prepares the ground for betrayal, violence, and major shifts in power. Nothing in this episode feels wasted. Every look, every pause, every hidden detail is pointing toward a massive turning point. The ending of episode 3 doesn't explode, it whispers. But that whisper is louder than any gunfire. It tells us the game is about to change, alliances will collapse, and someone is going to make a move that will shock everyone. Episode 3 ends with tension hanging in the air like smoke, and that's exactly how the writers want it. They're telling us the storm is coming, and nobody in Chicago is ready for what's next.